In response to a few requests of my reading of Malaysia in and for 2025, here are my thoughts. Are we going to leap into the future, or is this a last stand? As we stand on the threshold of 2025, going into it now today on the 1st, we find ourselves in a world gripped by a convergence of events that one would read as a page only from a top-secret worst-case scenarios report. From the confrontation between Russia and Ukraine that is still lingering without a definitive resolution, to simmering tensions in the Middle East fueled by the genocide in Gaza, Iran's and Lebanon's precarious influence on the regional conflict, our geopolitical landscape feels as fraught as it is unpredictable. We enter 2025 with Europe, even Europe, engulfed in internal discords, with Germany and France wrestling with fractured coalitions and persistent economic migraines. The economic engine of the EU, Germany, is in political turmoil after the collapse of Scholz's coalition, a Social Democratic-led government, with snap elections set for February. Economic policy disputes fractured the alliance, leaving a minority government struggling amid a faltering economy and growing immigration tensions. Germany is poised for a conservative shift. Potential end to Scholz's leadership may reshape Germany and even Europe's political landscape. France is in political disarray, with Macron's government fractured after early elections produced a hung parliament. He didn't plan that. Budget disagreements and leadership instability marked by 3 prime ministers in a year, something we are familiar with here in Malaysia, have deepened public discontent, prompting calls for Macron's resignation. Economic turmoil, social unrest, all compounds the crisis, leaving the nation at a political crossroads. Far away in South Africa, 2024 saw the ANC lose overall control in South Africa for the first time in 3 decades, leading to a unity government with the Democratic Alliance, an arrangement that, despite policy disagreements, is holding steady. I'd like to say that we are familiar with right here. But meanwhile, the civil war in Sudan continues to displace millions, with limited humanitarian corridors offering only partial relief. That, without significant progress in peace negotiations, it is feared that the crisis will undoubtedly deepen into and probably beyond 2025. Closer to Asia, China's Xi Jinping is attempting a tightrope act of balancing sluggish growth, property market winter, a very cold one, and youth unemployment, while bracing for renewed tensions with the United States. But Beijing has rekindled trade partnerships with nations like Brazil, India, and even Australia to mitigate the impact of any new tariffs, which has made the US widening its call for tariff weaponization, even to its allies. Xi Jinping continues to project a desire for win-win cooperation with Washington, but China is also prepared to retaliate if confronted by aggressive or more aggressive US trade measures for the ultimate aim of maintaining domestic stability and, guard against external volatility, even as it explores opportunities for strategic global outreach and further economic integration, with bold, and some would even say overreaching, plays on tech and new energy. Meanwhile, the United States, under its soon-to-be newly reinstalled President Donald Trump, appears poised to reorder, or attempt to reorder at least, the global economic landscape once again, wielding threats of tariffs as a revenue generator and calls for America first. That rhetoric reverberates from Beijing to Berlin. It is against this backdrop this unsettling, I would say, backdrop, that we as a nation, Malaysia, enters 2025 uniquely positioned to chart a course that will either secure our status as a rising economic and diplomatic force, or consign us to mediocrity. There is undeniably a palpable sense of urgency, a go big or go broke moment for both our government and our private sector, our nation as a whole. In many ways, 2025 is our golden window. Our current administration, steadier than it has been since the political shifts between 2018 to 2022, now faces not only an opportunity, but I would even say an obligation to act decisively. If we do, we could become a model for a Southeast Asia grappling with the aftershocks of a pandemic-battered global economy and the renewed spectre of protectionism. If we hesitate, the next wave of technology-driven growth may easily bypass our shores. The stakes has, well, never been higher. That's not being dramatic. Now let's just reflect on this turbulent world that we are in the middle of. Globally, the swirl of crises creates a precarious environment for nations that rely heavily on exports and cross-border investments, traits that define our own openness and vulnerability. In the United States, the second Trump administration is not shy about its hawkish trade agenda, regarding tariffs as a tool of both revenue generation and nationalistic protection for American industries, apparently. For an economy like ours, deeply woven into global supply chains for electronics, E&E, semiconductors, palm oil, and more, and others, this kind of volatility demands agile policy making. That's the most diplomatic word I can think of. On the other side of the globe, China is at once our partner and our competitor together. As an economic juggernaut that produces more batteries, solar panels, EV vehicles than any other country, China poses attractive opportunities for deeper technological collaborations. Yet, Beijing's ongoing diversification of its supply chains, and very fast and quick and rapid ones at that, especially in response to Western tariffs, that might leave us scrambling. If we fail to move quickly and innovate aggressively, policy and technology-wise, layer on the persistent tensions in South China Sea and our long-standing foreign policy principles of hedging major powers, that hedge becomes an even more delicate dance than it always has been. Closer to home in Southeast Asia is, we're grappling with the challenges that run the gamut from Indonesia's capital relocation to Nusantara, to Vietnam's meteoric rise as a manufacturing hub, and from climate change-induced disasters to the ongoing strife in Myanmar. In sum, the region's environment is, anything but stable, and 2025 could become a litmus test for our resilience. But if we were to look back inwards, the government is at its strongest since 2022. Now, domestically, there is at least some measure of good news. Our current administration has reached a point of relative stability. A significant departure from the parliamentary upheavals and leadership changes, prime ministerial changes that characterize the post-2018, pre-2022 era. This steadiness, if you may, offers a rare political runway for implementing ambitious reforms. A stable government means that high-impact projects, whether it's in infrastructure, education, digital advancement, AI supercomputers, can progress without the constant fears of sudden realignments. Adding to this sense of security is the Prime Minister's bold reshuffle announced in mid-2024, when several Director Generals and Secretary Generals, or KSUs, across key ministries were reassigned to new portfolios. Most notably on the 1st of July, the Prime Minister elevated a relatively junior civil servant, not that junior anymore, to the position of Chief Secretary to the government, the #1 civil servant. A move virtually unheard of in our administrative history. As the highest ranking officer in civil service, the Chief Secretary wields substantial or the highest influence over policy implementation and daily governance. By departing from the conventional seniority hierarchical based promotions, the Prime Minister has signalled not only confidence in his or our fresh leadership, but also faith in the civil service willingness to adapt. Such a maneuver underscores just how firmly this current administration believes it has, or we have, consolidated under its political footing. In normal circumstances, elevating an unconventionally relatively low appointee would carry significant risks of backlash, both from within the civil service and amongst seasoned political observers. Yet the absence of any major, or in fact any internal revolt, suggests that the Prime Minister's decision enjoyed broad acceptance at key levels of government. In essence, the reshuffle and this high-profile promotion lock in further political stability, cementing a hierarchy that reflects the administration's current vision, or the current administration's current vision. Yet, stability can breed complacency. We must harness our renewed mandate to enact structural changes rather than resort to short-term populist gestures. Having weathered a tumultuous decade, I would say, we are justified in expecting genuine transformation. Improvements in public services, greater accountability in governance, and a forward-thinking economic vision that can steer us through the next wave of technological disruptions will come sooner and faster and thicker. With the civil service now reoriented under new leadership, the onus is on us to ensure that this window of political security translates into tangible results for the nation's long-term progress. Now let's look at some specific sectors. I've been talking about mine to microchip, or shall we say, let's talk about value chain ambitions then. One of our greatest untapped potential lies in our natural resources, particularly those critical minerals that can be transformed into higher value products. The leap from mine to microchip is not just a catchy slogan, although it is quite catchy. It reflects the reality that securing the entire supply chain from extraction to manufacturing places us in a strategic sweet spot. Demand for rare earth elements, or REE, and other critical minerals continues to skyrocket, fueled by the expansion of green technologies and consumer electronics. And on a theme of catchy slogans, another one is what it takes is sand to solar panels. The processing of sand into high quality silica available as raw materials for high specification solar panels, or PV, or photovoltaic PV making, which is in abundance just outside here of Ipoh, around Toronto, which trumps those currently being supplied from the East Coast and up north to PV players from around the world. Are we here in Perak strategically planning and attracting the right industries and investors to leverage our natural resource advantages? Just to go on a roll on catchy slogans, kaolin to porcelain, or kaolin to cosmetics. With the large amounts of kaolin that we have here, especially in and around the Kinta Valley, are we bringing in the right high growth, high quality, high value, high ESG, mid and downstream industries of kaolin? The little that I know is ceramic and porcelain products, paper coatings, cosmetic products, antidiarrheal medications, petroleum, refining catalysts like FCC catalysts, polishers and abrasives, about some of the downstream kaolin industries. Are we bringing them in, or are we too hooked on the quick cash, low tech raw material export rush? The real test is ensuring that we invest and attract investments in not only in the upstream mining sector, but also foster the downstream advanced manufacturing capabilities needed to become a genuine technology hub. This must start with mineral-specific, comprehensive economic supply and value chain mapping, which I've spoken about in Parliament. Simply shipping ores to foreign factories is no longer a viable path to prosperity. Instead, we must build capacity through strong TVET programs from mine through to microchip, research partnerships with universities, and robust public-private and academia ventures. This is the surest way for us to move up the value chain, grow our pool of skilled workers, and secure sustainable economic growth. Now, another sector of which I've spoken quite passionately about recently is on AI and the sovereignty of data and the sovereignty of AI. Parallel to our industrial transformation is the digital revolution. In a global economy where data has become as critical a commodity as oil once was, we find ourselves in urgent need of robust, sovereign AI infrastructure, systems and policies that protect our data from external leverage while propelling local innovation. This includes supporting AI startups and even local champions that's made it big, reinforcing data privacy laws and cultivating specialized talent. Yet the promise of AI also stirs anxiety, undeniably. Automation may displace traditional labor, and unchecked data surveillance can corrode civil liberties. A balanced approach where government regulations safeguard individual rights without stifling innovation will be critical. As global powers increasingly view AI mastery as a form of geopolitical clout, we can carve out our niche by championing ethical AI. Doing so not only defends our data sovereignty, but also positions us as a voice of reason and trust in a world dominated by big tech and big government powers making big government power plays. My recent call for an AI Training for All initiative simply amplifies the urgency of empowering every segment of society to navigate AI's complexities and opportunities. Beyond merely owning servers and supercomputers or developing in-house large language models, true AI sovereignty demands a thriving homegrown ecosystem, from world-class data centers and profitable, successful AI-focused enterprises to a broad-based, tech-savvy workforce. Public-private academia partnerships, such as local companies, training thousands of teachers in AI fundamentals like Imagine Group, serve as blueprints for scaling these efforts nationwide. In parallel, building advanced capabilities like the AI supercomputing infrastructure in Johor by NVIDIA and YTL will anchor our capacity to develop domain-specific solutions and maintain autonomy and sovereignty over our digital future. In many ways, AI Training for All, another slogan, also directly addresses the social dimension of data sovereignty by equipping ordinary Malaysians, be they students, teachers, small business owners, or industrial workers, with practical, usable AI skills. We diminish dependency on foreign technologies and knowledge bases. This inclusivity ensures that entire communities, not just specialists or multinational corporations with masters and PhDs, benefit from AI-driven innovations. The more we democratize AI literacy and make training accessible, the more we fortify our national resilience, ensuring that AI revolution reflects our values, protects our data, takes care of our interests, and promotes shared prosperity. Another slogan that I don't use very often anymore. Now, I think the next part would be about E&E and IoT for green mobility. Look at it as a grand strategy for 5G and beyond. Our E&E sector has underpinned our export-led economy for decades. Yet to stay ahead in a now fast disrupting world, we must integrate it into the broader IoT ecosystem, Internet of Things ecosystem, an evolution that aligns seamlessly with our national push for advanced 5G infrastructure. Hear me out. By reorienting supply chains to produce high-value connected solutions spanning sectors as diverse as agriculture, energy, and consumer devices, we can transition from a low-cost assembly node to a global innovation hub. Collaborations with tech leaders like Ericsson and Huawei will help cement the digital backbone and infrastructure needed to power anything from data-driven smart grids to pilot projects in autonomous electric transport or modalities of transport. Crucially, these same pillars of our connectivity and innovation fuel the rise of green mobility. Rapid deployment of EV buses in urban centers like Ipoh, for example, can be accelerated by 5G-enabled logistics and logistics infrastructure, like bus stops, real-time monitoring and predictive maintenance. All these can be implemented. Initiatives by Proton Geely, plus cutting-edge R&D from NVIDIA and YTL, reinforce a virtuous cycle where local OEMs and SMEs can simultaneously ride the IoT wave while advancing autonomous vehicle capabilities. As we build out charging networks and EV infrastructures, and partnerships with global players like Starlink can extend connectivity to even the most remote corners of the country, ensuring no community is left behind. By weaving E&E, IoT, 5G and 5G infrastructure, public transport into a cohesive national strategy, backed by policy incentives, skills building and green public transport projects, we can chart a course toward world-class technological leadership that also drives inclusive, sustainable growth through NIMP and NETL. Now, with all that in mind, no discussions of our future here in Malaysia or even the global future can ignore the intensifying impact of climate change. Rising sea levels threaten our coastal regions, while erratic monsoon season and rainfall jeopardize both rural communities and agricultural output, even urban communities like Ipoh with the recent floods. Yet these challenges also present opportunities for green finance, sustainable building, and ecotourism. With our biodiversity hotspots, from Royal Belum in Temengor rainforest to the coral reefs in far east Sabah coast, we can champion a vision of economic development that respects and leverages of ecological stewardship. Our government has a vital role in managing a just transition where workers in carbon-intensive sectors are retrained for green jobs. From solar panel manufacturing and installation to environmentally friendly tourism, every sector can evolve and must evolve. Doing so will not only mitigate our climate risks, but also elevate us as a regional frontrunner in the global shift towards sustainable growth. Now, I always try to finish anything that I say with a call to action, but it's also a call for global leadership, where perhaps most importantly, we must just simply wholeheartedly embrace our role on the international stage. As a stable Muslim-majority democracy with a history of moderate diplomacy, yet boasting to be a multi-ethnic, proud confluence of ancient and rich modern civilizations of Nusantara, South Indian, Southern Chinese, colonial and post-colonial West, we possess the credibility to mediate in fractured regions. Whether contributing to peace-building initiatives in the Middle East or championing climate action in multilateral forums or fora, our voice can resonate as a balanced and constructive force. But none of this will come to fruition or is important without bold action in 2025. Time and time again, we have flirted with grand visions, Vision 2020, and made sporadic, I would say strides, only to see momentum stall through political infighting or half-hearted or bad implementation. This year, we have little room for hesitation. That we expand decisively in infrastructure, technology, climate resilience, AI infrastructure, training, TVET, etc., R&D, or we resign ourselves to the deadening rut of this middle income trap or stagnation. Go big or go broke is more than just a slogan. It underscores the crossroads at which we collectively stand. If we channel our aspirations into concrete reforms through the Madani framework, 2025 can mark the dawn of a golden era of innovation and influence. But if we falter, the wave of global transformation will roll past us, leaving us scrambling to catch up. In a world that seems increasingly disjointed, our steadiness and unfulfilled potential stand out more than ever. The real question is whether we will seize this moment to propel ourselves forward onto the world global stage, or step back, or stagnate, content with our marginal gains. Our answer will be revealed by how boldly we, Malaysia, act today, this month, and across every single pivotal moment in the decisive year of 2025. Thank you and Happy New Year!